Welcome back to Rewrite Together, Breaking Barriers in STEM. I'm Kelly, your host for today's episode, and today we're spotlighting a phenomenal woman in AI leadership, someone whose journey shows that it is possible when you start with curiosity and continue that momentum to reach your career goals. She began her career as a systems and data analyst, worked her way through multiple technical and leadership roles, and today she's a director of data science and advanced analytics at Western Digital. She was also recently named among IEEE Computing's top 30 early career professionals for 2024, which is a huge deal. And as a fellow honoree myself, I'm really looking forward to hearing her take on it. Please join me in welcoming Nimisha. Welcome, Nimisha. It's glad to have you here.
Thank you, Kelly, for the lovely introduction, and I'm excited to be here as well.
Wonderful. So before we get into the hot topics, could you start by maybe introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about what you do in AI today? And you can maybe squeeze in also a fun fact about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll start with an education background, just to level set. So I hold a BS degree in computer science and cybernetics from University of Reading in the UK, and I have a Master of Science in computer science and neuroscience from University of Colorado at Boulder. I recently also completed Harvard Business School's Credential of Readiness program. It kind of spans across finance, economics, and business aspects of analytics. So that's from an education aspect. On the work front, I think you started with a great introduction. So I currently lead the data science team within operations at Western Digital. My team and I are kind of focused on developing and crafting machine learning, data science, and AI-powered solutions that is aimed at enhancing product quality and reliability. Our work actually just fits in the fourth industrial and fifth industrial revolution terms, if anyone in manufacturing is familiar with it. So what we do is we're focused on advancing AI and ML technologies to drive operational efficiency in a manufacturing environment. So we are also looking at, how do we proactively define solutions to help identify failures earlier in the product lifecycle. We also look at scaling analysis for our manufacturing products. We are also working right now on leveraging large language models to augment the workforce. And I know we'll talk a lot more about that from an AI perspective. But the goal being, how can we drive faster time to insights and get to market faster and help deliver our products to customers at the best, highest quality. So that's kind of the work aspect. And fun fact. I don't know if this is so much of a fun fact, but I love playing chess as a hobby. I feel like it keeps my mind very young and kind of think all the time, keep myself on the toes. So that's a little bit about myself.
Wonderful and amazing, Nimisha. Your resume is quite impressive, and it's such an honor to share the stage with you and to have a fellow recipient of the IEEE Computing's Early Career Award. So thank you so much for going down your work history as well as your favorite hobbies. And initially when I got the news back in February that I was selected for the award, I actually had to read my email multiple times. I experienced so many emotions, right? But most importantly, it felt more like a validation, right? After so many years of contributing to my field, cybersecurity. And, I'm wondering from your perspective and what it was like for you when you actually got that recognition. So how did you feel? Like, what were the emotions that you felt during that time?
Yeah. No, firstly, congratulations to you as well on this big recognition. I know it's huge coming from IEEE, and like you said, I also reread the email multiple times because it just was surreal, right? I had to read it, and I was like, "Is this real? Did the email come from the real IEEE? Was it, with all the spams that we get?" I was just it really was surreal, and my first immediate thought actually went back to when I applied for it. So I was very reluctant. I wasn't very strong in trying to apply, and I thank my mentor, actually one of my mentors, who saw this when they were taking applications, and he sent me the link and said, you have to apply for this. I think you will get it. And I was like, no, no, this is too big. I don't think so. And so I had to convince myself, in some sorts, to apply for it in the first place. So my first thought went back to that memory, that, how much did I hesitate to apply, and now just actually getting it was very memorable. uh, and to be honest, I think more than the validating feeling, my instant reaction was, now I need to give back to the community more and do justice to this recognition, right? So it to me, it seemed more like more responsibilities on my shoulders to do justice to what I was recognized for, or continue to do justice to what I was recognized for.
Yeah, and I can definitely second that. I believe the award definitely also gave me a nudge to do more and contribute more in my specific field. So I completely relate with that. And also, I'm happy and glad that you do have a support network, like your mentor, for instance, that reached out to you and said, "Hey, Nimisha, I think you're a great contestant for this award." So I'm glad that you have that support system, and I can imagine, right, the journey in your own experience from moving from your entry level role, your first job, right, to a leadership role now takes a lot of work, and I can attest that it doesn't take, it doesn't happen overnight. So I just wanted to hear, Nimisha, from your perspective, when you sort of look back at your own path, right? What were the pivotal roles or the turning points, right, that accelerated your growth to sort of bring you to where you are today?
Yeah, no, great question, actually. So I think, and I'm glad you asked about pivotal roles and turning points. I don't think there's one specific that I can point to when I look back, but I think more than just one turning point or a role, one of the key learnings that I've realized was the importance of adaptability. My first job actually was not in AI. I got a undergrad degree in AI before AI became the buzzword. Actually, it was not something that everybody recognized at that time. So my first job, it definitely was not a time when there were a lot of AI jobs. So I had to adapt myself and take different roles, which at that time did feel like a detour, right? Because I did study something else and then I'm working on something else. But what I realized later on is those skills did become very valuable later in point in the different roles that I had to take up, right? So the learning and the fact that you have to adapt was something that I really realized. And every experience, even if it seems a little bit of an off track at that time, I think adds value and kind of helps me prepare, or help me prepare for future challenges. And as I moved into leadership and take different roles, I also learned that growth is just not about titles or climbing the ladder. It's about expanding your influence. The more people that you can help grow as you grow is what really matters. And to do that, I kind of realized I need to have some sort of a personal brand, right? I need to have my own brand to be able to make that influence happen. And that also realization came in pandemic, actually, because we were all working remote. I wasn't getting that collaboration or face-to-face interaction with my fellow community, and that kind of made me realize I need to build in invest in building my own personal brand and kind of find new ways to connect and lead in a virtual world. So that's kind of also where I started dedicating more time to learning, whether it is, proactively taking additional courses, listening to podcasts, and so on, where you're constantly evolving and adapting yourself, right? And I think you kind of hinted in the previous comment is the support network. I think that's a huge foundation to anyone that is successful, and a lot of folks, I think, have that misconception that you need to have one mentor to help you grow. I think it's a full network of mentors and sponsors, and I must say, I'm lucky to have a great leadership at my work, a great mentorship cycle that I can rely on for advice to grow in each step. And it's really, you need a squad that will help you learn through. Advocate for yourself and for others as you grow, whether it's celebrating little wins, navigating setbacks, or just simply resonating and brainstorming what you're going through. I think having that support network is what really made a big difference. And if I had to give one advice for anyone starting out in tech, just invest in your support network. You need people that inspire you. You need people that you can inspire, and allies that who grow with you, right, who are in similar situation as you are. And that's, I think, how you would flourish and thrive in the global virtual work environment that we are in.
Great, Nimisha. And you talked about adaptability, being able to adapt to shifting changes. And I really want to stay on that topic for a bit here.
Mhm.
So, you've been in AI and you've pretty much seen it change, right? And AI is everywhere right now. It's such a hot topic everywhere, both in the professional space as well as in your personal life. So, specifically in your professional space, or at least in work, I want to know how you're seeing AI show up in the workforce. Some may say that, there's this fear of job displacement, while others think that AI could potentially, open up more opportunities than people actually realize. So I really want to hear from you, right? What you think about those two perspectives.
Yeah, no, great question. And I think that's also one of the hot topics that everybody brings up, right? Is AI gonna replace jobs? I think one of the things most folks don't realize is that is the long journey AI has had before where we are with the chat gpt sort of innovation that you see, right? If you actually dig back into the history of AI, it spans decades. So that the decades work is kind of what's gone as a foundation to what we see on the top, little piece of that iceberg. So the reality when you see that history is that the progress has been built over time. And AI's presence in workforce today is definitely rapidly evolving, no question about it. We've started with automating routine tasks to now enabling new roles. There's new roles, new skill set requirements that the workforce is looking for. But for those that kind of fear job displacement, the analogy that I'd like to generally give for them to think about is when the computer revolution took off, many feared that software tools would make accountants obsolete. After all, if you think about what happened in reality, is spreadsheets, Excel files did do all the calculation faster. They were able to store more data. We were able to reduce human error and everything. But in reality, the accounting skill set evolved. Folks that were able to use computer to do work faster turned out to be more successful than the folks that did not adapt, right? So it goes back to the adaptability piece. Let me repeat it. So it goes back to the adaptability piece, where you have to constantly adapt and quickly repivot in how best you embrace AI. And if you think about another example is when ChatGPT came up, right? When they released, and I mean, I'm just using ChatGPT as an example, but essentially, a generative AI came and made the big headlines. Everyone was talking about how generative AI would replace people. But now the narrative is shifting from job loss to how do I use those tools to empower my teams and approach problem solving differently, right? So you can see the shift in how AI was perceived a few years ago versus now, where every team is thinking about how do you embrace it. So I think it's heading in the right direction, where you are realizing the more opportunities that it's opening up, rather than just viewing it as a tool that's going to replace humans.
Yes, and I agree. AI is definitely shifting the workforce in terms of the skill sets as well as the education needed to just upskill and pretty much expand your knowledge right in AI. So you also touched on automation, right? And seeing that automation is a big part of AI and seeing that automation also drives efficiency. We've seen, in recent times that effect on entry level roles where, recent grads are kind of finding it difficult to get an entry level role. So also wanted to find out, right, what roles do you think are most at risk, and what would you say are the safest roles for anyone looking to get into AI or into tech? Could you share some wisdom on that?
Instead of thinking about specific roles, I would really think about the nature or the job duties of roles that are more at risk for automation, right? So the ones who are the roles or the job duties that are focused on repetitive tasks are more at risk, and the job duties that require advanced technical skills. Sorry, let me restart the whole thing. Okay, I think I'm so let me restart this one. So instead of thinking about specific roles, I would really think about the nature or job duties of roles that are at risk. So the ones who are focused on repetitive, routine tasks are the ones that are at risk. The real crux lies in roles that are not just those that require like technical skills, but those are the ones that demand a multidisciplinary approach and a deeper understanding of business. Roles that kind of blend technical expertise or technical knowledge with strategic thinking, creativity, and communication is what's very hard to automate, right? It's a complex blend of things that is needed. So what's valuable now is truly ability to work across disciplines. I don't think there's one field that is very unique where it only needs expertise in that field, right? You need to understand the context of business. You need to be able to communicate with stakeholders at different levels. Whichever role you are in, you're going to have to communicate with folks that work across disciplines. So how do you translate your technical solutions into the business language is how you can really set yourself apart, right? AI can just crunch numbers, it can automate workflows, but it can't replace the ability for that humans have to see the bigger picture and kind of ask the right question that is applicable for that organization, right? You see how the organization operates, how the business operates, and seeing that bigger picture and contributing your technical skills and advancing that business is where I would really focus on. So for anyone entering the workforce, don't focus on just the technical skills. Build your business knowledge. You don't have to become an expert, but you need to know enough to be able to speak that language. Learn to cross collaborate across teams, across disciplines. How do you translate what you're doing to somebody else that has no background or expertise in that? Is really how I think you can really stand out.
Yeah, and I think for entry level, right, I don't believe there's that expectation of expertise. So, Nimisha, you bring up very great points with combining not only your technical skill sets, but combining it with your creativity, your communication skills, being able to speak with the higher ups as well as your lateral co-workers and your peers. And another hot take, right, on of AI's impact on, not only reshaping, the workplaces as we've discussed, we've also seen AI reshape society and everyday life. So as a cybersecurity professional in my field, we talk about the impact of AI specifically within user privacy, data privacy, and from a bias perspective. And I'd really like to hear from you what those risks you see, especially for minority and underrepresented groups, right, that we're not really paying close enough attention to yet.
Yeah, great question, actually. So I think the cybersecurity community has been doing a great job, advertising or making more awareness, I would say, in how everyone needs to think about privacy, right? And privacy is not just a cybersecurity role. I think it's everybody's role in whatever solutions or applications you're building. And to me, I think from an AI perspective, one of the biggest blind spots in this whole AI revolution I see is just global literacy gap, right? If you look at it in a global lens, we have one set of communities that are very, very AI tool savvy. They have access to AI tools pretty much at their disposal. They have very strong exposure even early in their careers and in schools and so on. But if you look at it at a global level, it's not the case everywhere, right? You still have a gap when it comes to accessibility and exposure to these technologies. So I would see this is more as not just a tech issue, but a global gap. And I think there's a lot more work we need to do on how do we bridge the gap at the global level, and make sure we don't have a huge group that's left behind, especially for underrepresented groups and minorities, because the last thing you want is fewer opportunities for them because of the disadvantage that they have in terms of not just having that exposure. So I think that's a much bigger scale than a small scale impact that we could do.
Yeah, come to think of it, I've never thought of it from that limelight where the global literacy gap is pretty much widening, right? Especially as we are consuming AI into our daily activities. So I agree, Misha, it's very important for each group to, and all groups rather, to upskill and just ensure that we are ready for, sort of the AI shift.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we've been discussing back to back about the different hot topics. So I want to take a little creative break here, right? And just tap into our creativity senses. And Nimisha, I want you to imagine where you're able to, there's no red tape, right? There's no budget, where you're able to build something that is incredible and that is also personal. And if you had that freedom to create, whether it's like a platform or a program, a software, an item of your dream AI project, like what would that look like? And more importantly, why would that matter to you personally?
Yeah. So my first instant reaction to that, I would say this is much more on a lighter, fun note. I think I would just create a clone of myself. I mean, everyone's life is a mix of fun, challenging, difficult moments, right? I would really, if I had the ability to build something, I would have the clone essentially handle all the challenging, difficult moments, and then the real me would just go have fun, right? Very simply put, I think that's kind of what came to my mind first when you asked this.
Yeah, that's a really smart answer. We definitely need more Nimishas in the world. That's amazing. And I know we brought up the topic of having a support group, having a system of mentors,
Mhm.
and we've seen, a growing interest of younger professionals looking to get into AI and, tech roles. And one of the ways that I personally try to bridge that gap, right, is by mentorship. And so far, it's been very incredibly fulfilling to give back to the women in engineering community, as well as other communities that pretty much drive the advancement of women in tech. And seeing that, at some point early in my career, right, I needed this kind of support. But I also wanted to ask, outside of mentorship, are there maybe other things we could consider that could potentially create a space, for women, for young professionals, or even, anyone that is trying to get into tech?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought this up actually, because we do focus and talk a lot about mentorship. I think there's enough uh, uh, awareness around the importance of mentorship, but something that doesn't get the same kind of attention is sponsorship. Right. I think sponsorship is what really would reduce the gender gaps. And what sponsorship essentially means is it's about advocacy, right? It's about having someone in your work environment. I mean, mentorship, on the contrary, anybody outside of work is also someone that can guide you. But you need to have sponsors within the work environment or the organization that you operate in. And that's the person that actively opens doors to new opportunities, right? And when they have discussions on new opportunities, that's the person that recommends you, puts your name forth to the higher leadership and say, this person is capable, and helps you kind of get that seat at the table, right? So make sure you have, in whatever environment you're working in, you need to have sponsors. And again, just like mentorship, it's not one person that is going to make all the difference, right? You need to build, again, a network of sponsors that help you gain confidence to thrive in the workplace beyond just your job duties. And the sponsors also would act as mentors, where they give you critical feedback that helps you grow, and adapt in the new role that they have helped uh, put you in that job role. So I think it's something that everybody needs to look around and consider. So when we talk about sponsorship, we want to make sure we don't disregard or sideline the deserving candidates. So that is obviously the foremost. But beyond identification of the deserving candidates, I think being able to sponsor fellow professionals would be a great support.
Yeah, amazing. I believe all three work hand in hand, right? Mentorship, advocacy, sponsorship. And I think it's great that I believe our listeners now kind of understand the need for having all three versus just having like a mentor, for instance. You also want someone that has that power and leverage, right, in order to pretty much be your voice when you're not in the room, when there are decision makers and they're making decisions on your behalf. So great points you've raised, Nimisha. And as we're closing up here, right, with the final question, if you could leave our listeners with just one message, it could be a skill or a trend that maybe they could start paying attention to now, like what would it be?
So great, great question. So I would say don't wait for permission to be curious or ask questions. When I was starting out, again, reflecting back at my journey, I always thought I needed to have all the answers before I speak up or explore something new. But the truth is that curiosity is what really drives innovation and growth, right? So ask questions, challenge assumptions, lean into the unknown. That's truly where growth happens. So just don't hesitate to be curious and ask questions.
Nimisha, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your wins, and the real stories behind your rise. Conversations like this remind me that it's very important, right, to celebrate each other's wins, spark creative ideas, and to remind our listeners that they're not alone in their journey. So, to everyone tuning in, this is your reminder to reach out to your trusted network of mentors, sponsors, and advocates, and to keep showing up. If today's conversation inspires you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And until next time, stay curious and keep rising together.